With this being spring training underway and the Mariners' first game here for today, I'll stay away from the cliche of hope springs eternal, not because I'm trying to be a pessimist here, but I mean, for years, we've had a low bar here in Seattle for sports teams. And part of that could be personal choice. Part of it is because the banners here are lacking compared to what you might see in places like Los Angeles or New York or Boston or Chicago, etc. For the Mariners today, it's their first game back since Game 7 4 months ago in Toronto. And a lot of time to wrap your head around what happened that night, a lot of time to weep and psychoanalyze with taking Brian Wu out for Edward Bizarro and getting a do-over maybe if they could against George Springer in that fateful inning. Last year, though, it was the bar set to get back to the postseason. Now, you got everybody back. You got Jorge Polanco out, essentially, though, Brendan Donovan in, and they answered the big question, could they find a bat for their lineup? And they did. Cal Raleigh is healthy once again. Julio is fully in bloom as the best center fielder in baseball, and he has put away and he has trashed any kind of narratives here about can he be the guy to perform in big game situations. There's a pitching staff here that can go toe-to-toe with anybody in baseball. Might be the best pitching staff in baseball, not named the Los Angeles Dodgers. But much is given, also much is expected. And the bar has got to be raised now as compared to last season. And with the Mariners 8 outs away from going to where they never ever went before, the bar is now the World Series. The bar is now the World Series. And I don't think, based on health, how logical it is to rationalize otherwise. What I think is the beauty of this, Jess, is that, I mean, for folks, I mean, this is your team, but now it's a team for all the world to see. They'll get more national TV coverage here for this year. They'll get also more scrutiny as a result. But more ultimately, if they can get to the biggest stage, or who knows, let the Commissioner's Trophy about 8 months from now, the pain and grind of 162 makes it all worthwhile and all worthwhile in the end. But that's the kind of standard the Mariners had to be held to all season long.
They absolutely do when you're scraping greatness. And obviously we saw a ton of greatness from them last season. But if you're, tickling the World Series, then, you got to go all in, especially considering the amount of consistency we're seeing in the lineup and the pitching staff right now into this season. The bar can only be raised higher, and it's not that much higher, though. It's almost like the opposite of limbo. How low can you go? Well, I think that they have everything in place to go higher, and I don't know that they saw the greatness they were capable of last year as they approached the postseason. I think they felt it, but I don't think it was an expectation put on by the fan base because that was 20 years coming, 23, 24 years coming to see them in the position that they were last year. So now, of course, you have to look at that as buzz. What I give Dan Wilson a lot of credit for as a manager, though, is having been in that position. He knows how to temper expectations on a day-to-day basis in a 1-6-2 regular season.
49451, text us once again, and I want to hear your talkbacks on this. If the Mariners don't reach the World Series, do you consider this season a failure? Again, 49451, or give it to us here via talkbacks, iHeartRadio app, 93.3 KJR, and then again, just find the red mic icon, record your thoughts, and send it in 30 seconds or less, and you're going to be on the show. For me, 2 years ago, the pitching staff was the story here for this team, despite an offense that was underperforming. And now, needless to say, 2 years later, this lineup is much, much better. But the pitching staff last season did not have the kind of health that they wanted, but were able to get over it and sustain themselves to win the division and get into the postseason, and now basically proclaim that we got the biggest target on our back now, not the Houston Astros, about a half a country away here, just like they've had for about, roughly a decade. I think health is a great question, but I love what Chuck Powell brought up on the air earlier this morning, and that we need to be talking a lot about defense this year. Pitching and defense will win you baseball games in the very end. Yes, you have to have the lineup here to fortify it, and you're not going to win baseball games scoring 2 runs a game. I think a lot of us saw the downside of that in this postseason from this last year. But ultimately, pitching and defense, especially up the middle, what do you got? I like what they have in Cal Raleigh. I love what they have in Julio, but again, the questions bear. J.P. Crawford, do you put Brendan Donovan over at third base? Hasn't played there much as compared because he played behind a guy named Nolan Arenado, who is as elite as it gets in that position. So a lot of questions here for this team, and I think that ultimately will be the biggest one here is can this defense perform up to expectations and sustain what they can do on a game-by-game basis offensively.
100%. And I just think that it's hard for me to get into, because I'm so football based, that it's hard for me to get into the mentality that is required for that kind of sport to keep a level head when, it is, I think it was Jack Sorenzik back in the day used to say that it is a game of failure. If you're batting 300, you're batting negative.
You're failing 7 out of 10 times.
Exactly. So when it comes to that, it's understood that it can be frustrating throughout an entire season, especially with how many you have. And where do you focus your energy? Do you perform the same every single time? Do you focus it on division opponents, conference opponents? Do you have a day where you're like, let's have our backup third baseman pitch? And Dan Wilson, having been there, though, I think is perfect for tenoring that. It's just hard for me to understand how anyone can actually do that on a day-to-day.
Pitching and defense, again, is a baseline fundamental for success in baseball, just like the offensive line is here in football, and just like what they would say is, besides goaltending, but also a good stack of centers in the NHL. The more depth that you have, the better off that you're going to be.
100%. And as it's proven, as we look at basically, running backs in the NFL, right? Depth is what keeps you successful. We look at the offensive line, like you said, we had a couple of guys that could swing to different positions, right? That's depth, even though you don't want to tax people that hard. Pitching and defense is where it's at, and people are really only talking about it in the Gold Glove and Cy Young categories at the end of the season.
So the Mariners have it as far as pitching. Do they have it here for defense, and can it be enough here to get them to the World Series? And is that the bar? Do you think that it's a failure if they can't get to the World Series? Again, 49451, or give us your talkbacks again right here via the iHeartRadio app.